What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a late-night talk show expecting a normal interview but instead gets blindsided by a host who thinks he can say whatever he wants? In just 33 seconds, Seth Meyers went from smiling talk show host to the man who made one comment too many, pushing Samuel L. Jackson to a breaking point that nobody saw coming. The stage was set like any other night. The band played, the audience clapped, and Samuel L. Jackson walked out with that confident stride everyone knows. He sat down, shook Seth's hand, and settled into the guest chair. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. But what nobody in that audience knew was that they were about to witness one of the most uncomfortable moments in late-night television history. Seth started with the usual stuff. Small talk about the weather, a joke about traffic, the kind of safe opening banter that gets audiences warmed up. Samuel played along, laughing at the right moments, nodding politely. He was there to promote his new film, a project he had been working on for months, something he clearly cared deeply about. You could see it in his eyes. This movie meant something to him. "So, Samuel," Seth said, leaning back in his chair with that casual confidence hosts have when they think they own the room. "Tell us about this new movie of yours. What's it about?" Samuel sat forward, his face lighting up the way it does when someone asks about work he's proud of. "Well, it's a story about redemption," he began. "It's about a man who's made mistakes, serious mistakes, and he's trying to find his way back to being the person he used to be. It's raw, it's honest, and I think people are really going to connect with it." The audience clapped. They were interested. They wanted to hear more. But Seth, for some reason, had other plans. "Redemption, huh?" Seth said, and there was something in his tone, something that made you pause. "Sounds pretty heavy. I mean, aren't you guys just playing dress-up and pretending for a living?" The audience went quiet, not silent, but that kind of quiet where people aren't sure if they should laugh or not. Samuel's smile faded just a little bit, just enough to notice if you were paying attention. "Playing dress-up?" Samuel repeated, his voice calm but with an edge. "That's an interesting way to put it. You know what I mean," Seth continued, waving his hand like he was brushing off something small. "I mean, come on. You memorize some lines, you stand in front of a camera, you collect a paycheck. It's not exactly brain surgery, right?" Now the audience was definitely uncomfortable. You could feel it. That collective holding of breath that happens when someone says something they probably shouldn't have said. Samuel sat back in his chair, and if you knew anything about reading people, you'd know that was not a good sign. "Seth," Samuel said slowly, deliberately, "do you have any idea how much work goes into what I do?" "Oh, I'm sure it's very hard," Seth said, and the sarcasm was dripping from every word. "Standing around, saying words someone else wrote for you, taking a break every 20 minutes for your assistant to bring you a coffee. Real tough gig you got there." The band members looked at each other. The audience shifted in their seats. This was not going the way anyone expected. This was supposed to be fun. This was supposed to be light and entertaining. But Seth kept going. "I mean, let's be honest," Seth continued. "Actors get paid millions of dollars to basically play pretend. Meanwhile, there are people out here doing real jobs. Teachers, nurses, construction workers. They're barely making ends meet, and you guys are complaining about having to do another take because the lighting wasn't perfect." Samuel's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "You think that's what it is?" he asked. "You think we just show up and things magically happen? I think you've got it pretty easy compared to most people." Seth shot back. "I mean, cry me a river if you have to spend an extra hour in the makeup chair." "Let me tell you something," Samuel said, his voice rising now. "I've spent 30 years perfecting my craft, 30 years studying, training, learning how to become different people, how to make audiences feel something real. I've worked with directors who demand 50, 60 takes to get one scene right. I've spent months away from my family, living in places I don't want to be, doing stunts that could actually hurt me, all to tell stories that matter." "Stories that matter," Seth repeated, laughing. "You're in superhero movies, man. You're wearing a cape and fighting CGI monsters. Let's not act like you're changing the world here." The audience gasped. Actually gasped. Some people put their hands over their mouths. This had crossed a line, and everyone knew it except apparently Seth, who just sat there with that smug look on his face. Samuel stood up, not quickly but deliberately. He unbuttoned his jacket, the way someone does when they're about to get serious. "You know what your problem is, Seth?" he said, his voice carrying across the entire studio. You sit behind this desk every night, making jokes, thinking you're clever, but you don't actually respect the people you invite on your show. Oh, come on, Seth said, laughing nervously now. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just joking around. Joking around? Samuel's voice got louder. You just dismissed everything I've dedicated my life to. You just told me and everyone watching that what I do doesn't matter. That's not a joke, Seth. That's disrespect. I think you're overreacting, Seth said, trying to regain control of the situation. Maybe we should take a commercial break. No, Samuel said firmly. We're not taking a break. You started this conversation. We're going to finish it. You want to talk about real jobs? Let me tell you about real work. I wake up at 4 in the morning for makeup. I spend 12, sometimes 16 hours on set. I study accents for months to get them right. I work with acting coaches. I do physical training. I put my body through hell for action scenes. And I do it because I love it, because I believe in the power of storytelling, because I know that movies can inspire people, can help people escape their problems for 2 hours, can make them think about things differently. Okay, Seth said, holding up his hands. I get it. You work hard. I apologize if I offended you. If you offended me? Samuel's eyes went wide. If? There's no if about it, Seth. You absolutely offended me. And you know what the worst part is? You don't even realize how disrespectful you're being. You think because you're the host, because this is your show, you can say whatever you want to whoever you want. Seth's face was getting red now. You could see it even under the studio lights. Look, Samuel, I really think you're blowing this out of proportion. Out of proportion? Samuel took a step closer to the desk. You invited me here. I came to your show as a guest. I didn't have to be here. I could be anywhere else right now. But I chose to come on your show to talk about my work, and instead of having a respectful conversation, you've spent the last few minutes insulting my entire profession. I wasn't insulting anyone, Seth protested. I was making conversation. I was being entertaining. Entertaining? Samuel laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think belittling people is entertaining? You think making your guests feel small makes for good television? The camera operators didn't know where to point their cameras. The producers in the booth were probably losing their minds. This was live television, and it was falling apart in real time. Samuel, please, Seth said, his voice getting higher, more desperate. Let's just move on. Let's talk about something else. You know what? Samuel said, shaking his head. I don't think I want to talk about anything else with you. I don't think I want to be here at all anymore. Wait, what? Seth sat up straighter in his chair. Come on, don't be like that. Don't be like what? Samuel asked. Don't have self-respect? Don't stand up for myself when someone disrespects me on national television? I didn't disrespect you, Seth insisted, but his voice wasn't confident anymore. He was backtracking, trying to fix something that was already broken. Yes, you did, Samuel said simply. You absolutely did. And the fact that you can't even see it, the fact that you're sitting there trying to tell me I'm overreacting, that just makes it worse. Seth opened his mouth to say something, but Samuel held up his hand. Let me ask you something, Seth, Samuel said. Have you ever spent 6 months preparing for a role? Have you ever had to dig deep into your own trauma, your own pain, to bring truth to a saying? Character? Have you ever stood in front of a camera and had to cry real tears, over and over again, take after take, until the director is satisfied? Have you ever had to do a stunt that scared you, that actually made you think you might get hurt, but you did it anyway because that's what the scene required? Seth didn't answer. He just sat there, looking smaller by the second. I didn't think so, Samuel continued. You sit here in your comfortable chair, in your nice suit, reading jokes off cards that other people wrote for you. And you have the nerve to tell me that my job is easy? That what I do doesn't matter? I never said it doesn't matter, Seth tried to interject. Yes, you did, Samuel cut him off. Maybe not in those exact words, but that's what you meant. That's what came across, and I'm done. I'm done with this conversation, I'm done with this interview, and I'm done with you. The audience was completely silent now. You could hear every breath, every small movement. This was the moment everyone would talk about. This was the moment that would be replayed over and over. Samuel, please, Seth said, standing up now. Don't leave. Let's talk about this. Talk about what? Samuel asked. Talk about how you think my life's work is a joke? Talk about how you have no respect for artists? No, Seth, I think we're done talking. You're really gonna walk out? Seth's voice had an edge of panic to it now. In the middle of the show? Yes, I am, Samuel said firmly. Because I don't have to sit here and let you insult me. I don't have to smile and pretend everything is fine when it's not. I have more respect for myself than that. This is ridiculous, Seth said. And now there was anger in his voice. Real anger. You're being a diva. You're being unprofessional. Samuel stopped. He turned back to look at Seth, and his expression was pure disbelief. I'm being unprofessional? I'm being a diva? Seth, you're the one who turned a simple interview into an attack. You're the one who couldn't just have a normal, respectful conversation. But sure, blame me. Blame the guest for not wanting to be disrespected on your show. I run a comedy show, Seth said defensively. We make jokes. That's what we do here. Making jokes is one thing, Samuel said. Being cruel is another. Being dismissive is another. And you crossed that line. You crossed it way back, and you've just kept going. Seth threw his hands up. Fine. Leave then. Walk out. Show everyone what a big man you are. Oh, that's rich, Samuel said, his voice dripping with sarcasm now. Now you're going to try to make me look bad for standing up for myself? That's your play here? I'm just saying, Seth continued, digging himself deeper. If you can't handle a little ribbing, maybe you shouldn't come on talk shows. The audience actually groaned at that. Some people shook their heads. They could not believe what they were hearing. A little ribbing? Samuel's voice rose again. You spent 10 minutes tearing down my entire career. You dismissed actors as overpaid pretenders. You mocked the work that people dedicate their lives to. That's not ribbing, Seth. That's contempt. And I don't know why you have so much contempt for the people you invite on your show, but that's something you need to figure out. I don't have contempt, Seth protested weakly. Yes, you do, Samuel said. It's obvious. It's been obvious this whole time. You look down on actors. You think we're lesser than you somehow. And maybe that makes you feel better about yourself. I don't know. But it's not my job to sit here and absorb your issues. Seth's face was bright red now. His hands were shaking slightly. You know what? Maybe you should leave. Maybe this interview is over. Oh, now you want me to leave? Samuel laughed. Now that I've called you out, now that I've pointed out what you're doing, suddenly you want me gone? That's convenient. I'm trying to save. This show, Seth said through gritted teeth. You should have thought about that before you started insulting your guest, Samuel replied. You should have thought about that before you decided to use me as a punching bag for whatever personal problems you're dealing with. I don't have personal problems, Seth snapped. Everyone has personal problems, Seth, Samuel said, his voice calmer now, but no less intense. But most people don't take them out on their guests on national television. Seth sat back down in his chair heavily. He looked defeated. He looked like he knew he had messed up, but didn't know how to fix it. What do you want me to say? He asked quietly. I want you to understand what you did wrong, Samuel said. I want you to understand that words matter. That when you have a platform like this, when you have millions of people watching, you have a responsibility to treat people with respect. You don't get to hide behind comedy. You don't get to say whatever you want and then act surprised when people get upset. I was just trying to be funny, Seth said, but there was no conviction in his voice anymore. At whose expense? Samuel asked. That's the question you need to ask yourself. Who are you hurting to get a laugh? And is it worth it? The studio was so quiet, you could hear the lights buzzing. The audience didn't move. The band didn't move. Everyone was watching this unfold, this raw, real moment of confrontation. I think, Samuel said finally, I'm going to go now. I'm going to walk off this stage, and I'm going to remember this as the interview where I learned that not every host deserves my time. Not every show deserves my energy, and definitely not every conversation is worth having. Samuel, Seth said one more time, but his voice was barely above a whisper. Goodbye, Seth, Samuel said, and he turned and walked toward the exit. The audience didn't know what to do. A few people started to clap, uncertain, scattered applause. They grew as Samuel walked. By the time he reached the side of the stage, half the audience was on their feet, applauding him for standing his ground, for refusing to be disrespected. Seth just sat there at his desk, watching Samuel leave, his face a mixture of anger and embarrassment and something else, maybe regret, maybe realization, maybe just shock that someone had actually called him out, had actually refused to play along with his game. Samuel reached the edge of the stage, and for a moment, just a brief moment, he paused. He looked back at Seth, at the desk, at the cameras, at the audience, and then, without another word, he disappeared behind the curtain. The cameras didn't know where to go. One stayed on the empty guest chair. One stayed on Seth's stunned face. One panned to the audience, showing their mixed reactions. Some people still clapping, some people with their mouths hanging open, everyone trying to process what they had just witnessed. Seth cleared his throat. "Well," he said, trying to inject some humor into his voice. "That was unexpected." But nobody laughed. The audience just stared at him. Even the band members looked uncomfortable, shifting in their seats, not sure what they were supposed to do. "We're going to take a quick break," Seth said, and his voice cracked slightly on the word break. "We'll be right back." The producers cut to commercial, but the damage was done. In 33 seconds of misguided comments, Seth had turned what should have been a routine celebrity interview into a disaster. He had pushed one of Hollywood's most respected actors to the breaking point. He had revealed something ugly about himself, something that audiences would not quickly forget. Because here's the thing about respect: you can't fake it. You can't pretend to respect someone while simultaneously tearing them down. And when you're sitting across from someone who has spent decades earning their place in the industry, someone who has worked harder than most people can imagine to get where they are, you don't get to minimize their achievements. You don't get to act like what they do is easy or meaningless. Samuel L. Jackson walked onto that stage as a guest. He walked off as a man who refused to compromise his dignity for the sake of a talk show appearance. And in doing so, he taught everyone watching a valuable lesson about self-respect, about knowing your worth, about understanding when to walk away. Seth wanted to be clever. He wanted to be edgy. He wanted to push buttons and create a memorable moment. And he got what he wanted, just not in the way he expected, because this moment would be remembered, all right. It would be remembered as the time a host let his ego get in the way of basic human decency, as the time someone thought they could say whatever they wanted without consequences, as the time Samuel L. Jackson said enough is enough and walked away with his head held high. But before Samuel had reached that curtain, before that final moment of departure, there was one more exchange, one more piece of this confrontation that made everything even more intense. "You know what really bothers me about this?" Samuel had said, turning back one more time. "It's not just that you disrespected me. It's that you disrespected every single person who works on films. The costume designers who spend months researching historical periods to get every detail right. The cinematographers who wake up before dawn to catch the perfect light. The sound engineers who spend hours making sure every word is crystal clear. The editors who piece together hundreds of hours of footage into a coherent story. You dismissed all of them with your careless words." Seth had opened his mouth, but Samuel wasn't finished. "And you know what else?" Samuel continued, his voice carrying that weight that made people listen. "You disrespected your audience too, the people who love movies, the people who go to theaters and streaming services to watch the work we create. You basically told them that the thing they love, the thing that brings them joy and excitement and emotion, is worthless. Is that really the message you want to send?" "That's not what I meant," Seth had stammered. "Then what did you mean?" Samuel challenged. "Because from where I'm standing, you made yourself pretty clear. You think actors are overpaid and lazy. You think the work we do is trivial. So please, enlighten me. What exactly did you mean?" Seth had looked around, as if searching for help from somewhere, anywhere. His writers weren't going to save him. His producers couldn't fix this. This was his mess, and he was sitting right in the middle of it. "I just meant," Seth had started slowly, "that sometimes, actors get a lot of attention and money for work that doesn't seem as physically demanding as other jobs." "Doesn't seem," Samuel had repeated. "Doesn't seem. You know what doesn't seem hard, Seth? Sitting behind a desk and reading jokes. But I would never come on someone's show and say that to their face, because I have something called respect. I understand that every job has its challenges. Every profession requires skill and dedication. Just because something looks easy from the outside doesn't mean it is," the audience had murmured in agreement. They were completely on Samuel's side now. Whatever goodwill Seth had built up over years of hosting had evaporated in the span of one disastrous interview. "I have done stunts that left me bruised for weeks," Samuel had continued, his voice building. "I have learned dialects so specific that I had to work with linguists to get them perfect. I have studied real people, read their diaries, watched footage of them, absorbed every detail of their lives so I could honor their stories on screen. I have cried until I had no tears left because the scene demanded it. I have scared myself going to dark emotional places because the character required it. So don't you dare stand there and tell me it's not real work." "Okay, you've made your point," Seth had said, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. "Have I?" Samuel had asked. "Because you still don't look like you understand what you did wrong. You still look like you think I'm overreacting. You still have that expression on your face like I'm the problem here." "I don't think you're the problem," Seth had insisted. "Your words say one thing, but your face says another," Samuel had observed. "And that's part of what I do, Seth. I read people. I study human behavior. It's literally my job to understand what people are really thinking and feeling beneath what they say. And right now, you're angry that I'm not playing along. You're angry that I called you out. You're not sorry for what you said. You're just sorry it didn't go the way you planned." That had hit hard. You could see it on Seth's face, that flicker of recognition, that moment where someone realizes they've been seen clearly, completely, without any of their usual defenses working. "Every single day," Samuel had said, his voice quieter now, but no less powerful, "I make choices about how to treat people, how to show up on set, how to interact with crew members who are working just as hard as I am, how to respect the collaborative nature of filmmaking. I don't walk onto a set and act like I'm better than everyone else just because my name is on the poster. I don't dismiss the contributions of people who work behind the camera. I understand that making a movie, making any piece of art, is a team effort. Everyone matters. Everyone's work has value." He had paused, letting his words sink in. "But you," Samuel had continued, pointing at Seth, "you sit here night after night, and you think you're the star. You think it's all about you. You don't think about the guests who take time out of their busy schedules to appear on your show. You don't think about how your words might affect. You just say whatever pops into your head and expect everyone to laugh along. That's not fair," Seth had protested. "Fair?" Samuel's eyebrows had shot up. "You want to talk to me about fair? After what you just put me through? After you spent this entire interview trying to make me look foolish?" "I wasn't trying to make you look foolish," Seth had said. "Then you failed spectacularly," Samuel had replied, "because that's exactly what you were doing. You were trying to get a rise out of me. You were trying to create some kind of viral moment where you could claim you got under Samuel L. Jackson's skin. Well, congratulations, you did it, but not in the way you wanted. The camera had caught everything, every word, every expression, every moment of this collision between two very different men with very different values. I came here in good faith," Samuel had said. And there was something almost sad in his voice now. "I came here thinking we'd have a conversation. Maybe you'd ask me some interesting questions about the creative process. Maybe we'd talk about what drew me to this particular role. Maybe we'd discuss the themes of the film and why they matter in today's world. But instead, you decided to use your platform to tear me down. And for what? For laughs? For ratings?" Seth had no answer. He just sat there, looking smaller and smaller with each passing second. "You have a responsibility," Samuel had told him. "Whether you want it or not, you have a responsibility. People watch this show. Young people watch this show. And when you treat your guests with contempt, when you mock the work that artists do, you're sending a message. You're telling those young people that it's okay to disrespect others, that it's okay to belittle someone's life's work if you think it'll get a laugh." The weight of those words had hung in the air. The studio had felt heavy with them, thick with the truth they contained. "Is that really the legacy you want?" Samuel had asked. "Is that really the show you want to run?" And that's when Seth had made his final mistake. That's when whatever small chance he had of salvaging the situation disappeared completely. "Maybe you're just too sensitive for this format," Seth had said. The audience had gasped again, louder this time, more shocked, because everyone knew, everyone in that studio, and everyone who would eventually watch this, everyone knew that was the absolute wrong thing to say. Samuel had gone very still, very quiet, and when he spoke, his voice was ice cold. "Too sensitive," he had repeated slowly. "So now we're at the part where you try to make this about me, where you try to suggest that the problem isn't what you said, but how I reacted to it. That's textbook, Seth. That's the oldest trick in the book. Say something offensive, and when someone calls you out, tell them they're too sensitive." "I'm just saying," Seth had tried to continue, but Samuel had cut him off. "No, Samuel had," said firmly. "You don't get to just say anything anymore. You've said enough. You've shown everyone exactly who you are and what you think of the people who come on your show. and I'm done giving you opportunities to dig yourself deeper. That's when he had started walking. That final, decisive movement toward the exit. The interview was supposed to be about a movie, about art, about storytelling. Instead, it became about something much more fundamental, about respect, about dignity, about the way we treat each other, especially when the cameras are rolling and the world is watching. And as Samuel disappeared behind that curtain, as he left that studio and that desk and that host behind, one thing was crystal clear. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes refusing to participate in disrespect is the strongest statement you can make. Sometimes saying no, I will not accept this, I will not stay here and be treated this way, is exactly the right move. Seth sat at his desk, trying to figure out how to salvage the rest of his show, but there was no salvaging this. There was no clever joke that could fix what had happened. There was no way to rewind and start over. The moment was done. The damage was real. And everyone, from the audience in the studio to the viewers at home, had just watched a masterclass in standing up for yourself, delivered by a man who knew his worth and refused to let anyone diminish it.